Donald Trump is nearing tomorrow's deadline to produce a nearly $500 million bond for his New York civil fraud penalty. Now, if the former president does not come up with that money, he risks having some of his assets seized by the state of New York, including bank accounts, buildings, cars, and planes. All this as his lawyers were denied a motion in another case against Trump. A lot to talk about, and for more, let's welcome in NewsNation politics and economics contributor Mick Mulvaney, who is also White House Chief of Staff during the Trump administration. Mick, it's good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Natasha, thanks as always. Good to see you.
Let's talk about this. Donald Trump said on Truth Social this week that he has about $500 million on hand, but it will be used for his campaign, counter to his lawyers' claims that he won't be able to post the bond. So in the end, what do you think happens tomorrow in New York?
My guess is, knowing the various players, they're not going to post the bond tomorrow, which means that New York will begin the process of executing on the judgment, which could include seizing Trump assets. I'm not sure the Trump lawyers cleared the statement where he said he had all that cash. They've been making the case that he does not. And those are the types of things that politically will help Trump, and we could talk about that a little bit if you like, but legally they won't help him at all.
Yeah, tell me, politically, how does this help?
Well, I got to think that Trump has done a tremendous job over the last year of taking these lawsuits and turning himself into a victim. You and I have talked about this before. His campaign can be wrapped up in a couple of sentences. Look at me. Look what they're doing to me. I'm rich. I'm famous. If they could do it to me, they can do it to you. Elect me, and that won't happen. The next move on that chessboard would be for them, the state of New York, to actually start taking his stuff. It would simply give new energy to that same sort of victim argument that he's been making so successfully. So I actually think it helps him politically, including with swing voters. He's going to be able to make the case this is politically targeted, and if his last name wasn't Trump, they wouldn't be doing this to him, and he's probably right.
So you think the seizing of the assets, the taking of the planes, the taking of cash and buildings only gives momentum to the rocket ship he already seems to be on?
I'm not sure how it's going to hurt him politically. Again, he's not going to like it. Don't get me wrong. It's not like he's saying, oh, yes, they're playing into my hand. He does not like this at all. It's not good for the Trump brand in the long term, and he knows that. But he's also the best I've ever seen at taking something bad and making it into something good. And if that's what, if New York decides to execute on some of his assets, you can expect him to fully take advantage of it politically.
I do want to ask you about this. Looking at the other side of the 2024 race, the Biden campaign maybe taking a page out of the Trump book, calling his Republican rival, quote, broke Don in a new campaign statement. You're laughing. Is this a good look? Is this a good move for Biden?
No, and here's why. Keep in mind, unless Biden's completely changed his message from 2020, I thought his message in 2020 was vote for me, I will restore normalcy, I will restore sanity, I will be the boring, competent person in the White House. He's struggled with that, and that's one of the reasons that his shenanigans with his son Hunter have been so effective, I think, in undermining Biden's campaign in the last couple of months. But going after Donald Trump and calling him names sort of undermines that whole theme of vote for me, I'm the adult in the room. So I don't know if Biden did this on purpose. My guess is, you know, nothing's done by accident in a presidential campaign. So they're doing it on purpose, but I can't imagine it's going to translate into much more political support for the current president.
I do want to ask you about third-party candidates. We were looking at a recent piece in The Hill that says that RFK Jr. could swing the election towards Trump. Do you agree? Do you think that RFK Jr. is a clear threat to Biden?
All the data I've seen, and I've seen a lot of it because I've done some work for No Labels, all the data I've seen is that third parties right now pull roughly evenly from both sides, and that RFK Jr. would be included in that, pulling a couple percentage points from Donald Trump and a couple percentage points from Joe Biden. The reason I think you're hearing the Democrats complain about RFK and about No Labels more than the Republicans is that there is a sort of a rule of thumb in this business that third parties tend to hurt the incumbent party, regardless of who that is. That certainly happened to George Bush in 1992 when Ross Perot essentially gave the election to Bill Clinton. George Bush was the incumbent at the time, and I think the Democrats are looking back over the history of third parties and saying, you know what, it's not a Democrat-Republican thing. It's an incumbent versus challenger thing, and maybe that's why they're more concerned about RFK right now than Trump is.
Yeah, good context. Thank you. And we know RFK Jr. expected to name a running mate this week, potentially on Tuesday. It would open up some ballots for him, which he sorely needs. Who do you think would help him the most from the short list you've seen so far?
Somebody whose name people recognize. I remember you and I may have talked about this last week. I've already forgotten the name. There you go. I do this for a living. I follow politics for a living, and I forgot the woman's name before the end of the interview. Yeah. If she brings a ton of money to the campaign, that's great, but she's not going to bring a single vote. Keep in mind, ordinarily, people do not vote for vice president. A vice president's supposed to bring some type of addition to a ticket, whether it's a state, an expertise, some type of connection. And certainly, if this woman brings money, that's great. That's what RFK needs. Every campaign needs it, so that would be a good thing. But I don't think he can name anybody short of Oprah Winfrey or Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson that actually adds a vote.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.